Hey guys, this is the 9 o'clock update after the planes flew through. I'm also going to give you a link of somebody called Guardian News. He's going to do live webcams as long as they're up and running as the hurricane hits down there. He'll do this evening. So I just wanted you guys to know right now they're in a commercial here, but I will put his link up so you can watch the storm come in. I'm sure the Weather Channel will be there too, but I'll tell you what, Guardian News is an awesome channel. He did the one with the dam that was bursting, and he kept right on top of it. And when they had the fires in California, he kept right on top of that also. So as soon as the weather comes back on, I'll do the live stream till they're finished tracking. They did say there's a 60% chance of another one forming in the Gulf, along with Lucas heading there. So Texas is already flooding. They've got floods going on right now. So if that one forms in Texas, that's not going to be good for Texas. Shouldn't be much longer. Here, I'm going to adjust the volume. Here we go, I think. Okay, we're just waiting for them to come out of a commercial. I've got a dear friend down in California. His name's Guardian News. He's going to have live video tonight or tomorrow whenever the hurricane hits. He's going to get on the webcams and cover it that way. I'll put his link below. All right, still waiting for the commercials. They got to pay for their channel, I guess. Oh, I hate commercial breaks. Yeah, that's going to put a thing on the screen. We're still under a tropical storm watch. They're still saying winds sustained at 35, gusting to 55 for us. Possible 3 to 8 inches of rain. Here we go.
Just hope that everything's still standing and it's not too much damage. But again, this is a very significant storm.
I've lived here my whole life, and I can't recall having to like this.
Definitely a significant storm, to say the very least here. People are heeding the warnings and they are preparing. When I came into town yesterday, I noticed a lot of people pulling their boats and even trailers with livestock out of here to higher ground. That is very important. And with our changing forecast, the storm surge could be especially brutal across the North Carolina coastline. I want to bring back in Dr. Eric and I to talk about this because we are under a storm surge warning here across Morehead City, North Carolina, and almost the entire coast of North Carolina under that storm surge warning. We're talking maybe 9 feet of storm surge, but if that's just an hour or two, not a big deal. But with this changing track and path of Florence, this could be a multiple day storm surge issue across the coast.
Yeah, Paul, with that latest trend in the forecast here, we could be talking multiple high tide cycles of storm surge into these areas. Remember, when that storm surge coincides with the high tide, that is the worst case scenario because you get that water coming on shore here. With a storm that approaches here from the south and then essentially skirts the coast in this kind of manner, that's going to increase the potential of seeing those multiple high tide cycles of storm surge because that onshore flow continues for several days in that scenario. So we've got those storm surge warnings, as Paul said, here up for the coastal North Carolina and portions of South Carolina. Storm surge watches as well for places like Charleston, as well as heading up into the east coast of Virginia. And here's what we're talking about. This is a threat for life-threatening storm surge in these areas potentially impacted by Florence. The forecast for east eastern North Carolina, like Morehead City here, heading up towards the Outer Banks, 9 to 13 feet. And this is above the dry ground, above areas that would typically be dry, 9 to 13 feet. I mean, that's as tall as a basketball hoop, if you need a reference there, and potentially taller. This is not something you can withstand, and if you are told to evacuate, you need to do so. Even outside of that, 6 to 9 feet as you head off here to the left and the right, and 4 to 6 feet for places like the Outer Banks and into coastal South Carolina. And areas along the North Carolina coast are particularly vulnerable because many of them are below sea level. You can see the yellow areas here are below 10 feet, and this is also a heavily populated area. So essentially, you know, people have asked what would be the worst case scenario, and I'm thinking, okay, well, we're already here looking at the forecast and what we could be potentially looking at in some of these areas. In particular, with the river levels running high and that storm surge coming in for several days, potentially, given the track of that storm, we could be looking at, again, a reasonable worst case scenario of above 9 feet here in a lot of these areas. You can see this is around Washington, in North Carolina. A lot of places here got potentially heavily impacted. Heading off to the south towards Wilmington, that yellow color shows you potentially up to 6 feet in the Wilmington area and up to 9 feet here as you head south here and east of 133. So, Alexandra, this is a very scary forecast to be given because, yes, this is a reasonable worst case scenario, but we could potentially exhibit some things like this.
Wow, scary. All right, thanks, Dr. Navarro. And as she just said, of course, Florence's arrival comes with dangerous storm surge. Our hurricane specialist, Dr. Greg Postel, breaks down why it is
They've got their
the timing of the landfall could make this even worse.
They're off on their
Life-threatening inundation is likely to accompany
voice. It doesn't
Hurricane
match
Florence as it moves
what
toward
they're
the
saying.
Carolinas. Look at some of these forecasts. Given the current projections, significant storm surge. That's water above normally
It's not
dry
ours,
ground. In the
it's
worst case
their
scenario,
feed.
but
It's
prepare
not
for that.
my feed.
Some of these are incredible numbers, above 9 feet in those areas shaded in orange. And it's not just happening at the coast. Look at, as we zoom into some of these areas, in particular near Morehead City, some of these areas, some of these neighborhoods, roads, and businesses will be underwater. Look at some of these amazing detail that is coming out from these storm surge maps from the National Hurricane Center, suggesting this is a very significant risk. And again, not just for North Carolina, but probably South Carolina as well. Pay attention to the updates in the forecast. This is not a static situation. We will be watching all the changes going forward. But let me show you what that means. For example, using our augmented reality. This is remarkable stuff. Okay, so imagine just 1 to 3 foot of storm surge, right? 6 inches can stall out a car and knock you off your feet. 2 feet of storm surge can carry away a car and certainly start to flood low levels of structures. But then going above that, from 3 to 6 feet, all of a sudden you get large objects floating around in the water. Those can serve as battering rams and enhance the damage. And certainly by then, you're inundating the first floors of many structures, businesses, homes. And then above that, if you're on the first floor, you're in trouble. You need to get to higher ground or higher floors in your businesses or residence. Be very mindful of how much storm surge is expected in your area and pay attention to and listen to the advice of those local officials. Hurricane Florence continues to close in on the southeast U.S. Be prepared for all of the hazards. Back to you.
All right, and one of those areas impacted, Morehead City. Let's go back there now live with Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hey there,
9
Alex.
feet of
Let's talk
storm
more about
surge.
what's
Wow.
going on in terms of the coastline. That's why we're answering your questions coming up here on the Weather Channel. If you have any hurricane-related questions, hit our Twitter or Facebook. Use the hashtag hurricane questions. We're back after a break to answer some of your questions. Stick around as our continuing coverage of Hurricane Florence